I don't think I would give tips to anyone on that day because everyone was mortified of doing that dance. Everyone was like already stressed enough.
Yeah.
This is not my first international project, but it is my first, quote unquote Hollywood debut. Who's better than an icon like Nicole Kidman? Most consistent feedback I would get is that I look very young. I like to work in silence, and I prefer the work speaks for itself.
Ishaan, thank you for your time. I mean, it's such a beautiful show, and you are so good in the show. And the perfect couple and Nicole Kidman. When the teaser came out, I was like, oh wow, Ishaan has a big show coming up. So, how was it sharing the screen with her, doing such a big show for Netflix?
It was wonderful. On a scale of production like this, all you hope for is to have a wonderful set of people to work with.
Yeah.
And who's better than an icon like Nicole Kidman? But I'm happy to report that she's equally as wonderful in person as she is on screen. Our director Susanna Bayer is highly accomplished filmmaker. She's made some of the most bingeable series in the past few years with The Night Manager and The Undoing. And so it was great. I mean, I felt blessed to be a part of a setup like that. And what's more, I think it was a great part, and there was meat on the bone, and there was enough for me to kind of bite into it. And I enjoyed it. It's been a long time coming. We shot for it, almost a year and a half ago, a little more than that. So I'm excited that it's out finally and people are seeing it.
Yeah, how do you, I mean, you've done such a big show and then it took almost 1.5 years to come out. How do you keep quiet and not be excited? If I were you, I would be jumping everywhere. So while waiting, what was your mental frame like?
Partially my professional obligation, and partially I think it's just my personality. I like to work in silence, and I prefer the work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So it's great, and it's all the more enjoyable now that it's out, and people are getting to see all of it in its glory and enjoy it. And there's nothing more wonderful than people taking the work in the right spirit and enjoying it and consuming it and being engaged and entertained by it. And it's a fun show, and I think Susanna's take on it is very unique. So I'm glad people are seeing it for all that it is.
Yeah.
And it was also particularly long drawn out because there was of course the SAG strike that happened, and we had a few days of work remaining. We were on the tail end when the strike happened, and so the production was delayed for about 7 months.
Oh.
And if I'm not wrong, we started shooting early in March. The first day of shoot was with myself and Eve. It was the 3rd of March. And we ended up wrapping the show. This is 2023, and we ended up wrapping the show in January of 2024.
Wow.
So
okay.
it was a longish period. And then I've worked ever since. I've shot another series. And, it's good that it's out now.
Yeah, Ishaan, but when you are like they're shooting for a show like this, how many days were you shooting for it, and then how do you balance your dates for maybe projects that you get in India?
Well, these were blanket dates. So I was in Cape Cod for 4 months at a stretch. I didn't come back even once. And in any case, I prefer to finish one project and then move on to the other. It's my personal preference. I know people can do it many other ways, and that's great. But I like kind of giving myself to one thing, physically, really dhaloing myself in that, and kind of having the full lived experience and then moving on. So it works for me in any case, but in this case it was definitely particularly long. 4 months in the Cape is a long time.
Yeah.
In
the first answer you said that you prefer your work doing the talking, and the kind of work that you've done, this is not, a lot of places I read how this is your first international project, but you worked with Majidi, Meera and Iyer, right?
Yeah.
So what is going in that? Is this a choice? Is this the kind of work you're getting? Is this what you want to do? How is it like? How are you planning things?
Well, I've never been overly strategized. I've also largely been lucky and fortunate that I had such opportunities. Yes, you're correct. This is not my first international project, but it is my first, quote unquote Hollywood debut, and it is my first American project as such. So It's great. I mean, I'm only 6 years into my career and I've had some really wonderful opportunities, honestly. And I always strived for my work to be diverse, and I always wanted to. I never kind of was attached to making a name in any one particular industry. It was about good work, you know, and even now when I'm asked as I move forward, do I want to work more in the West? Do I want to work more here? My honest answer is wherever the good work is. And yeah, I'm just going to try to kind of make the most of the opportunities that I receive and do justice to them. And at the moment, I'm enjoying this because it's, I think, a blessing in disguise, and I think it's really the kind of, I mean, it's not even disguised really, it's just a blessing. I think it's the kind of start that you would, you know, idealize and hope to have. I think it's a project that everyone's watching and enjoying. So
Yeah. So I want to understand what is with the name Shooter Dival.
Shooter Dival.
Yeah. I mean, can you explain why is it?
So
Our Indian name supposed to be funny?
no, that's not what it is. It's well, first of all, the character in the book that the series is based on was called Shooter Huxley. There is a backstory. We even shot it. It didn't make it to the final cut, but the reason the name is Shooter is because when he was in boarding school with the character Benji, he was a master at the game of dice, and that's how they met, and that's how they became friends, and that became his nickname because he shoots the dice. So that's why he's called Shooter. And I always imagined in my head that his name would be something like Shiv, and it's kind of a derivative of that. So yeah, but they wanted to keep the mystery around it. So
Yeah. And with the straight face that you say, you know, you don't get that yellow stuff in Mumbai. I just cracked up. It was so funny. I'm like, come on, Ishaan, you do get mustard over here. So it was a fun
bright
thing.
yellow stuff. Yeah. Not as much.
Yeah. You know, there is a beautiful dance sequence also. And since you come from Bollywood and you are such a good dancer, did you give any tips to Nicole Kidman? Did they come to you?
No,
Like,
I wouldn't dare.
What was your input like?
I don't think I would give tips to anyone on that day because everyone was mortified of doing that dance. Everyone was like already stressed enough. And it was really sweet, and it was kind of amusing honestly to me because like coming from here, it's bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
This is what we do. So I was like, but I have to admit, when I received the choreography myself, it was a bit of a surprise attack on us. None of us were prepared for this, and it ended up being the last thing we shot on the show.
Oh, wow. So it must be a fun
They were
day,
just
no?
like, okay, here's, you know, Susanna just sent an email saying, you know, here's a dance that we need you to perform when you get back in the new year. And we had like 6 days, and everyone kind of, as a quiet protest, like didn't learn the dance.
Oh.
Because you're like, there's no way we're doing this. Like, it doesn't make sense. You know, it was just very abrupt and frankly, a little absurd to us. But that's the genius of Susanna's vision. You know, nobody knew how she was seeing it. And it's so interesting, and it kind of just makes light of the whole, you know, murder mystery trope.
Yeah.
And it throws off the audience, and they don't know what to expect going forward in the show because tonally it can be so mercurial, you know. So I think it was very, very clever decision on her part, and now we all love it. So, you know, and I think eventually when we all danced, we just had the best time, you know, because that's what dance does. It's joyous.
Yeah. Do they know that you're a very good dancer and famous over here for your dance?
I mean, I think some of them do. I mean, Eve and the others do, but Eve particularly, I think, just, you know, threw down and took her best shot because she was like, this is my moment to be a star, like this is my moment to own it. And she enjoyed it. And I think Liev was the only person who was openly preparing for the dance the whole time. But everybody else was very grumpy until they did it. And then
BTS should come out of this team.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Ishaan, I don't want to compare you with the other actors of your age, but I want to understand from you how you look at competition, because Siddhant Chaturvedi is doing brilliant work, you are doing brilliant work, Bubble is doing brilliant work, but at the same time it's very different, it's not that पहले ऐसा होता था 90s में कि सभी romantic leads बन रहे हैं, but here you all have created a niche. So I want to ask you how you look at competition and how you are creating the niche and a space for yourself which is so different from one another.
Well, I can only comment for myself, and the names that you took are colleagues of mine, friends of mine. Siddhant and I have worked together, and I mean, for myself, what I can say is, I think it's a good time for actors, and I think there are interesting enough opportunities. We're also all kind of at an age now. When I started, I was 21, and for the longest time, the most consistent feedback I would get is that I look very young. And, for better or for worse, we don't write a lot of complex layered roles for young faces and young actors here. And so I was very fortunate when I got to start with the likes of Majidi, and I was able to work with Meera 2-3 years down the line. And so yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky in that regard. I've obviously admired the work of Siddhant in Gully Boy. I reached out to him like as soon as the first teaser came out, and I said, best of luck, man. And we've been friends ever since. And and Babel's doing some very exciting work. I really enjoyed Railwaymen. And I mean, honestly, I'm inspired by the work of anybody that I see, regardless of where they come from, what age, etc. And so for me, it's really about the work, and that is what I respect, and that is what I admire, and I can say transparently that I've enjoyed these projects.
Yeah. You said two things that, because you look so young, and I think Shahid also initially felt that, but today he's doing such fabulous work. So when you say that complex roles are not written for younger looking actors, does that get frustrating at times?
If that's what you're seeking, of course. I mean, that's that is something that one strives for. At least in my case, I did, and I think also I was a bit spoiled because I started with Beyond the Clouds.
Yeah, I mean, so, it's a beautiful movie.
And a rare role, and so I think I was then looking for, not that I was straying from any other, kind of thing, or trying to be rebellious about, the kind of parts that were offered to me, but I think I just wanted to kind of break out of the mold a little more.
Yeah.
And even in commercial projects, to receive parts that are of a certain how do I put it?
Bollywood.
Three-dimensional.
Okay, yeah.
So and of course that is largely an actor's job to bring those layers and dimensions, but it's very important to be supported by the text. There's very little you can do if you're not. So but I think that's changing, and I think you should celebrate it when you get a chance like that, and when it's appreciated and received well.
Yeah, I think you've done some very good work, and
Thank you.
continue doing it.